The massive council ship dropped out of hyperspace near the third planet of the Sol system. Its sensors immediately began scanning the blue and green world below. Commander Zarthek adjusted his viewing screen and watched the data flow across his terminal. "Another primitive world," he muttered to his assistant. "They barely have spaceflight. Look at those crude metal ships orbiting their planet." The assistant, a young Cathari named Veltar, studied the readings. "Sir, they seem to have achieved faster-than-light travel recently. The energy signatures are very basic, though." Zarthek nodded. He had seen hundreds of worlds like this one, young species that thought they were advanced because they could travel between stars. They never understood how small they really were until the Galaxy Council showed them. "Begin standard scans of their civilization," Zarthek ordered. "I want to know everything about these. What do they call themselves?" "Humans, sir. They call themselves humans." The scans took 3 days. The humans had not even noticed the council ship watching them. Their detection technology was too weak to spot a ship using proper stealth systems. Zarthek read the reports with growing boredom. The humans had one home planet with about 8 billion individuals. They had small colonies on 2 nearby worlds and several mining stations. Their technology was maybe 200 years behind council standards. They still used chemical rockets for most of their space travel. "Typical pattern," Zarthek told Veltar. "Aggressive species that fights among themselves. They have dozens of different nations on their world, and they still have wars. They will be easy to integrate." The cultural scans were more interesting. Humans seemed to form very strong bonds with each other. They worked in groups and showed unusual loyalty to their teams. They also showed remarkable creativity in solving problems, often finding solutions that surprised the scanning computers. "Sir," Veltar said, "some of these problem-solving patterns are quite advanced. The humans seem to think in ways that our models do not predict." Zarthek waved a hand dismissively. "Primitive species often show random creativity. It means nothing without proper technology and guidance." After a week of observation, Zarthek sent his report to the Galaxy Council. His recommendation was clear: integrate the humans as a Level 3 species. They could provide basic labor and raw materials. Their aggressive nature would make them useful as soldiers for dangerous missions. The Council approved the integration within days. Zarthek prepared for first contact. The Council ship appeared over Earth's largest city without warning. Panic spread across the planet as every detection system suddenly screamed warnings. The ship was huge, easily visible from the ground as a dark shape blocking the sun. Zarthek opened communications to every human government at once. His message was simple and direct. "People of Earth, I am Commander Zarthek of the Galaxy Council. Your species has been selected for integration into galactic civilization. You will send representatives to discuss terms. You have 24 hours. The humans responded faster than expected. Within 18 hours, their top diplomats and leaders had gathered at their United Nations building. Zarthek took a shuttle down to meet them, bringing only a small guard force. These primitives could not threaten him. The meeting hall was packed with nervous humans. They whispered among themselves in dozens of different languages. Zarthek found it amusing that they still had not learned to speak with one voice. "Humans of Earth," Zarthek began. "The Galaxy Council controls over 3,000 star systems. We have decided to offer your species membership in our civilization." The human leaders looked hopeful until Zarthek continued. "As a Level 3 species, you will provide raw materials, basic labor, and military service when required. In return, the Council will protect your world and share limited technology to help you serve more effectively." One of the humans, an older female with gray hair, stood up. "What if we refuse this offer?" Zarthek smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Level 3 species do not refuse Council integration. You may join willingly and keep some freedoms, or you may be conquered and lose all freedoms. The choice is yours." The humans talked among themselves for hours. Zarthek waited patiently. He had seen this same scene play out on dozens of worlds. In the end, they always chose survival over pride. The gray-haired woman spoke for all of humanity. "We accept integration into the Galaxy Council." During the signing ceremony, Zarthek noticed something odd. The humans had brought their own translation computers, claiming they wanted to understand every word of the agreement. Zarthek allowed it. What harm could their primitive computers do? What he did not know was that the human computers were recording everything. Not just the words, but the casual conversations between council members, the jokes about human intelligence, the comparisons to livestock, the discussion of how many human workers could be sacrificed in dangerous mining operations. Dr. Sarah Chen, one of the human scientists, listened to every word through her earpiece. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands clenched into fists under the table. She made mental notes of every council member's name and every casual threat. After the signing, Zarthek spoke privately with his assistant. "Another successful integration," he said. "These humans will serve well. They seem strong enough for heavy labor, and their aggressive nature will be useful in military operations." Veltar looked thoughtful. "Sir, did you notice how quickly they organized their response? Most primitive species take weeks to gather their leaders." Zarthek shrugged. "They were frightened. Fear makes primitives move faster." As the council ship left Earth's orbit, Dr. Chen sat in her office looking at the contract humanity had just signed. 50 years of service to the Galaxy Council. 50 years of being treated like children who needed protection. She opened a secure communication line to military bases around the world. "This is Dr. Chen. Begin Protocol 7 immediately. We have 50 years to learn everything we can about our new masters. When the time comes, we will be ready." Across Earth, hidden research facilities began working around the clock. Humanity had made their choice, but it was not the choice the Galaxy Council thought they had made. The humans had chosen to survive, but they had also chosen to remember everything. 50 years had passed since the Galaxy Council first arrived at Earth. Commander Zarthek was now much older, with gray patches in his scales and deeper lines around his eyes. He sat in his office reading reports about human work performance, and the numbers surprised him. "These humans are remarkable workers," he told his new assistant, a young Vecti named Korseth. "Look at these mining output reports. They exceed quotas by 30% every quarter." Korseth studied the data on his screen. "Sir, they also have the lowest accident rates of any species in the dangerous mining operations." "How do they manage this?" Zarthek had been wondering the same thing. When the Council first assigned humans to the asteroid mining operations, they expected high casualty rates. The work was brutal and dangerous. Most species lost at least 10% of their workers each year to accidents or equipment failures. But humans had developed something the Council had never seen before. They worked in tight groups of 5 or 6 individuals who seemed to know each other's thoughts. When one human was in danger, the others responded instantly, often before the danger was fully apparent. On Mining Station 7, human supervisor Marcus Rodriguez walked through the tunnels checking on his teams. The station was built inside a massive asteroid, and the work was dangerous. One mistake with the plasma cutters could kill an entire work crew. "Team 3, how are you doing down there?" Marcus spoke into his communicator. "All good, boss," came the reply from deep in the tunnels. "Found a really rich iron vein. Could keep us busy for weeks." Marcus smiled. His teams had been together for 15 years now. They trusted each other completely. They also trusted Marcus because he never asked them to do anything he would not do himself. What the Galaxy Council did not know was that Marcus and his teams were learning much more than just mining techniques. Every piece of Council technology that broke down was carefully studied before being repaired. Every conversation overheard from Council supervisors was memorized and reported. In the maintenance yards of Fleet Base 12, human engineering teams worked on Council starships. Chief Engineer Lisa Wong crawled through the access tunnels of a Council destroyer, supposedly fixing a power coupling that had burned out. "Hand me the quantum wrench," she called to her assistant. "Here you go, Chief," came the reply. Lisa carefully removed the burned component and replaced it with a new one. But before installing the replacement, she spent several extra minutes studying the power distribution system. Her fingers traced the circuits while her enhanced memory recorded every detail. The Council had given humans basic medical upgrades to help them work in harsh environments. What they did not realize was that these same upgrades improved human memory and learning ability dramatically. Every human worker in the galaxy was now capable of perfect recall. They remembered every Council technology they touched, every conversation they overheard, every weakness they observed. On the military side, humans served as shock troops for the Council's border conflicts. General Patricia Hayes commanded the 7th Human Assault Division, which had just returned from putting down a rebellion on Kepler 442b. The Council loved using human soldiers for this work. Humans were expendable, and they seemed to have no problem with violence when ordered. What the Council did not understand was how humans fought. General Hayes stood before her division after the mission. "Good work on Kepler," she said. "We completed the mission with minimal casualties. But more importantly, we learned how the Zephyrian defense systems work. Intel team, I want a full report on their shield generators by tomorrow." The human soldiers nodded. Every battle was a learning experience. Every enemy technology was studied and understood. Human military units had become the galaxy's most effective intelligence-gathering force, and the Council had no idea. Back on Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen was now in her 70s, but still sharp as ever. She sat in a secret facility built deep under the Pacific Ocean, reviewing reports from human workers across the galaxy. "The shipyard workers on Vega Station report successful mapping of Council hull metallurgy," her aide reported. "The mining teams from the Centauri system have identified weaknesses in Council logistics networks." Dr. Chen nodded. "And the military intelligence?" "General Hayes reports that human units have now studied Council weapons systems from 17 different conflicts. We have complete technical specifications for their energy weapons, shield systems, and faster-than-light drives." Dr. Chen smiled grimly. The Galaxy Council thought they were using humanity as cheap labor and expendable soldiers. They had no idea that they had given Earth's most dangerous species 50 years to study galactic civilization from the inside. On Council Station Alpha, Commander Zarthek reviewed the latest reports from human supervisors. The productivity numbers were excellent, but something bothered him. "Korseth, have you noticed anything unusual about human work patterns?" he asked. His assistant pulled up some data files. "They do seem to adapt to new technologies very quickly, sir. Much faster than we expected when we first integrated them." Zarthek frowned. "And their teamwork. I have never seen anything like it. They coordinate their actions without even speaking sometimes." What Zarthek was seeing was the result of 50 years of human evolution under Council rule. Humans had always been social creatures who worked well in groups. But decades of dangerous work had refined this ability into something remarkable. Human work crews had developed their own sign language, understood only by humans. They could communicate complex technical information with tiny gestures that looked casual to alien observers. They had also learned to modify Council technology in small ways that improved performance while staying undetected. On Mining Platform 15, a human maintenance crew was replacing worn components on a massive ore processor. To Council observers, they were just doing routine repairs. In reality, They were installing microscopic modifications that would allow them to shut down the entire platform remotely when the time came. Similar modifications were being made to council systems throughout the galaxy. Human workers had access to everything: power plants, communication networks, weapon systems, even the life support systems on council ships and stations. The modifications were so small and well hidden that council inspectors never found them. The humans called them gifts, presents they were leaving for the future. As the 50th year of human service to the Galaxy Council drew to a close, Commander Zarthek received a message that would change everything. The Council had decided to test human loyalty by sending human forces to clean up after a military action against a rebellious species. "The Recti homeworld has been sterilized as planned," the message read. "Human military units are to secure the outer colonies and eliminate any survivors. This will demonstrate human commitment to Council authority." Zarthek approved the orders without much thought. It was standard procedure after a rebellion. What he did not know was that this order would finally show the Galaxy Council what 50 years of underestimating humanity had cost them. The message reached General Hayes within hours. She read it twice, then called a secure meeting with her senior officers. "The Council wants us to finish what they started," she said quietly. "They want us to murder families and children." Her officers looked grim. They had spent 50 years following Council orders, but this was different. "What are our options?" "General," one of them asked. Hayes smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. "We show them what happens when you try to make humans into monsters." General Patricia Hayes stood on the bridge of the transport ship heading toward the Recti outer colonies. Her orders were clear: eliminate all survivors from the species that had dared to rebel against the Galaxy Council. But as her ship approached the first colony world, her sensors detected something that made her blood run cold. "Ma'am, I'm reading massive radiation signatures on the planet's surface," her communications officer reported. "The entire southern continent has been glassed." Hayes studied the readings on her screen. The Council had not just defeated the Recti military, they had sterilized entire cities. Millions of civilians, including children, had been vaporized by orbital bombardment. "Sir, we're receiving a distress signal from the northern settlements," another officer called out. "Survivors are requesting medical assistance." Hayes made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Change course for the northern continent. Prepare medical teams for immediate deployment." Her officers looked surprised. "Ma'am, our orders are to eliminate survivors, not help them." Hayes turned to face her crew. These were humans who had served the Council faithfully for 50 years. They had followed orders without question, even when those orders sent them into deadly situations. But this was different. "I've seen the surveillance footage from the bombardment," Hayes said quietly. "The Council targeted schools and hospitals first. They weren't fighting a military force. They were committing genocide." The ship's senior staff exchanged glances. They all knew what this meant. Disobeying Council orders was punishable by death, not just for the individual, but for their entire family. "General," her second-in-command said carefully, "if we help the survivors, the Council will consider us in rebellion." Hayes nodded. "Then we better make sure our rebellion counts." Within hours, human medical teams were on the ground treating Recti survivors. The aliens were tall, thin creatures with blue-gray skin and large eyes. Many were badly injured from the orbital bombardment, but some were healthy civilians who had hidden in underground shelters. Dr. James Park, the lead medical officer, worked frantically to save a young Recti child whose parents had been killed in the bombing. As he worked, other survivors told him what had happened. "The Council ships appeared without warning," one adult Recti said. "They demanded total surrender, but when our leaders asked for time to consider, the ships began firing immediately." Another survivor added, "They targeted the cities first, then the farms. than even the wilderness settlements. They were not trying to defeat us, they wanted to erase us completely. Dr. Park felt sick as he listened. This was not warfare, this was extermination. The Galaxy Council had decided to make the Recti an example to other species who might consider rebellion. Back in space, General Hayes received an emergency transmission from Council Command. General Hayes, you are ordered to cease medical operations immediately and complete your assigned mission, came the cold voice of Council Admiral Thexron. Any further delay will be considered mutiny. Hayes looked at her communications officer and nodded. The officer opened a channel to the entire human fleet in the system. All human ships, this is General Hayes. The Galaxy Council has ordered us to murder wounded civilians and children. I am formally refusing this order. Any human ship that wishes to follow Council commands may leave now. The rest of us have work to do. Not a single human ship left the formation. Within minutes, warning lights began flashing throughout the human fleet. The Council had activated kill switches built into all human equipment and ships. The idea was to remotely disable any human force that became rebellious. But the kill switches did not work. 50 years of human maintenance crews had given humanity complete knowledge of Council technology. The kill switches had been quietly disabled years ago, replaced with fake signals that made the Council think they were still functional. Council ships are approaching from hyperspace, the sensor officer reported. 15 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought. Hayes smiled grimly. Signal all ships. Operation Homecoming is now active. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of worlds and stations. Human workers who had seemed loyal for 50 years suddenly revealed their true nature. Mining teams seized control of asteroid facilities. Maintenance crews locked down Council ships and stations. Human military units turned their weapons on their Council overseers. The most important action happened on Earth itself. Dr. Sarah Chen, now 80 years old but still brilliant, sat in her deep ocean command center watching data streams from across the galaxy. The moment General Hayes refused her orders, Chen activated protocols that had been 50 years in the making. "Begin the evacuation," she ordered. Hidden shipyards that had been disguised as asteroid mining operations suddenly came alive. Massive ships that looked like ore haulers revealed themselves to be heavily armed warships. The ships were built from Council technology that humans had been repairing for 5 decades, but they were designed according to human principles. The first wave of ships headed directly for Earth. Commander Zarthek stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching in horror as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human rebellions were erupting everywhere simultaneously. It was impossible. Humans were a primitive species under constant surveillance. "Sir, we're receiving reports that human workers have seized control of the main power plant on Proxima Station," his aide reported. "They're also in control of the communication arrays on 14 different worlds." Zarthek felt a chill run down his spine. This was not a spontaneous rebellion. This was a coordinated military operation that had been planned for years. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "We monitor all human communications." What Zarthek did not know was that humans had developed their own communication system using quantum-entangled particles hidden inside routine repair equipment. They had been able to coordinate across the entire galaxy without the Council detecting a single message. The Council's response was swift and brutal. If humanity wanted to rebel, they would pay the ultimate price. "Activate the Earth bombardment fleet," Council Supreme Leader Vextar ordered. "If we cannot control the humans, we will eliminate them entirely." 20 Council dreadnoughts dropped out of hyperspace around Earth and began charging their planet-killer weapons. The bombardment would sterilize Earth just as they had sterilized the Recti homeworld. On Earth, Dr. Chen watched the Council fleet approach and opened a communication channel that would be heard across the galaxy. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen, speaking for the human species." Her voice echoed through space. 50 years ago, you offered us a choice, serve or die. We chose to serve, and you thought that meant we had chosen to be weak. The Council ships continued charging their weapons. But you never understood what we really are, Chen continued. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us for millions of years. We survived ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and our own worst instincts. We learned to hunt in packs, to never give up, to turn every failure into a lesson. The first Council ship finished charging its weapons and prepared to fire. You gave us 50 years to learn everything about your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. You thought we were your servants, but we were really your students. And now class is over. As the Council ship fired its planet-killer beam toward Earth, something impossible happened. The beam struck an invisible barrier and scattered harmlessly into space. Earth was protected by shield technology that should not have existed, shield technology built from 50 years of studying and improving Council systems. But that was not the most shocking part. The most shocking part was what happened next. As the Council ships stared in confusion at their failed bombardment, space around Earth began to fill with human ships. Hundreds of them, then thousands, then tens of thousands. The Galaxy Council was about to learn what happens when you threaten the home planet of a species that had spent 50 years pretending to be harmless. Admiral Chen's final words echoed across the galaxy. You wanted to see what humanity becomes when you threaten our own. Now you'll learn why we were never the prey. We were the ones in waiting. The human counterattack began exactly 17 minutes after the failed bombardment of Earth. It happened simultaneously across 17 different star systems, and the Galaxy Council realized too late that they were facing an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. On the bridge of his flagship, Commander Zarthek watched in horror as reports flooded in from across Council space. Human forces were not attacking military targets. They were systematically destroying the Council's ability to function as a civilization. Sir, the fuel depot at Kepler Station has been destroyed, his communications officer reported. All ships in that sector will be stranded within days. The main communication relay at Vega Prime is offline, another officer added. We've lost contact with 6 colonies in that region. Zarthek stared at the tactical display showing the scope of human attacks. Red markers indicated severed supply lines, destroyed logistics hubs, and captured infrastructure. In less than an hour, the humans had crippled the Council's ability to coordinate their forces. How are they doing this? Zarthek demanded. Where did they get the ships? His intelligence officer pulled up reconnaissance data with trembling hands. Sir, it appears the humans have been building a fleet for decades. Those asteroid mining operations, they were actually shipyards. The ore processors, they were weapons factories. The truth hit Zarthek like a physical blow. For 50 years, the Council had been paying humans to build the weapons that would destroy them. At the Rigel fuel processing station, Council forces prepared to defend against human attack. The station was critical to Council operations. Without it, hundreds of ships would be stranded. Admiral Kekstar commanded 12 heavy cruisers and had positioned them to intercept any attacking force. Human ships detected approaching from hyperspace, the sensor operator reported. Estimate 30 vessels, destroyer class. Admiral Kekstar felt confident. 30 human destroyers against 12 Council heavy cruisers was poor odds for the humans. All ships, prepare for battle. Show these primitives the power of superior technology. The human ships dropped out of hyperspace and immediately began an attack pattern that made no sense to Council observers. Instead of engaging the Council warships directly, the human vessels spread out and began targeting the station's infrastructure. They're attacking the fuel storage tanks, the sensor operator called out. And the docking platforms. They're ignoring our ships completely. Admiral Kekstar ordered his ships to pursue the human vessels, but the humans were faster and more maneuverable. When Council ships tried to engage them, the humans would disable their targets just enough to slow them down. then move on to the next infrastructure target. Within 2 hours, the fuel station was completely inoperable, but all 12 Council ships were still technically functional. They were just stranded with nowhere to refuel and no way to repair battle damage. Captain Maria Santos commanded the human task force responsible for the Rigel operation. She watched the stranded Council ships on her display and opened a communication channel. "Council ships, this is Captain Santos of the Human Liberation Fleet. Your fuel depot is destroyed and your supply lines are cut. You have enough fuel to reach exactly 3-star systems, none of which contain Council facilities. You can surrender now, and we will provide you with fuel to reach neutral space, or you can wait here until your life support fails." The surrender came within minutes. This same scene played out across Council space. Human forces had studied Council logistics for 50 years and knew exactly where to strike. They did not waste time fighting enemy ships when they could simply strand them by destroying their support infrastructure. On the military front, General Hayes led the attack on the Council's main fleet base at Altair. The base was defended by 50 of the Council's most powerful warships and was considered impregnable. Hayes brought a force of over 200 human ships, but they were not going to fight a traditional battle. "Begin Phase 1, Hayes ordered. The first wave of human ships approached the Altair base and immediately came under heavy fire from the defensive platforms. Several human ships were destroyed, but they pressed forward with their attack. To Council observers, it looked like a standard frontal assault. What the Council did not realize was that the human ships were targeting very specific systems. They were not trying to destroy the defensive platforms, they were trying to access them. Each human ship that was destroyed actually ejected boarding pods just before exploding. The pods were too small for Council sensors to detect during battle, and they contained human special forces teams. Within an hour, human commandos had infiltrated every major defensive platform around Altair base. They did not try to capture the platforms. They reprogrammed them. "Sir, the defensive platforms have stopped firing at human ships," the Council base commander reported to his superior. "I think they may be malfunctioning." "Shut them down and switch to manual control," came the reply. But when the Council tried to shut down their defensive systems, they discovered that the platforms were no longer under Council control. The human teams had used 50 years of maintenance experience to completely rewrite the platform control systems. "All platforms are now targeting Council ships," the base commander reported in panic. "The humans have turned our own defenses against us." The Battle of Altair ended with the complete surrender of the Council fleet base, without a single human ship engaging in direct combat with Council forces. The humans had simply used the base's own weapons to defeat it. But the most devastating human victory came at Zephyria Station, the Council's main industrial complex. The station was built inside a massive asteroid and was considered the most secure facility in Council space. Human Admiral Sarah Mackenzie approached Zephyria with only 12 ships against a force of 30 Council vessels. The odds seemed hopeless, but Mackenzie had a plan that would demonstrate humanity's true tactical genius. "All ships, begin mining Protocol 7, Mackenzie ordered. The human ships scattered around the asteroid containing Zephyria Station and began using mining equipment to bore into the rock. To Council observers, it looked like the humans were trying to dig their way into the station, a tactic that would take months to succeed. "The humans appear to be attempting siege operations," the Council station commander reported. "Should we launch fighters to stop them?" "No," came the reply from Council Strategic Command. "Let them waste their time digging. We can hold this position indefinitely." What the Council did not understand was that humans were not trying to dig into the station. They were studying the asteroid's structure and mineral composition. After 50 years of mining asteroids for the Council, humans understood space geology better than any other species in the galaxy. "Admiral," the chief mining engineer reported to Mackenzie, We've identified 17 stress fractures in the asteroid structure. If we apply pressure at exactly the right points, Mackenzie smiled, begin Operation Avalanche. The human ships positioned themselves at specific points around the asteroid and began applying carefully calculated gravitational fields. They were not trying to break into the station. They were trying to break the entire asteroid. The Council forces inside Zephyria Station felt the first tremors 2 hours into the operation. At first, they thought it was just normal station vibrations from the industrial machinery. Station engineering. We're getting some unusual readings from the structural sensors, someone reported. Probably just gravitational effects from the human ships, came the reply. Nothing to worry about. But the tremors grew stronger. Within 4 hours, it became clear that the entire asteroid was becoming unstable. The humans had found a way to use the station's own mass against it. "Admiral," the Council station commander called out desperately, "the asteroid is breaking apart. The humans have somehow destabilized the entire structure." Admiral Mackenzie opened a communication channel to the doomed station. "Council forces, this is Admiral Mackenzie. You have exactly 18 minutes to evacuate before gravitational collapse becomes irreversible. We are prepared to provide rescue assistance for all personnel." The evacuation was swift and complete. Council forces had no choice but to abandon their most secure facility to save the lives of their people. As they watched from their rescue ships, the massive asteroid that housed Zephyria Station slowly tore itself apart under its own gravitational stress. The humans had destroyed the galaxy's most important industrial complex without firing a single weapon. Across Council space, similar victories mounted up. Human forces attacked with tactics that the Council had never seen before. They fought like persistence hunters from a death world, patient, relentless, and utterly focused on their goal. Every defeat taught humans something new about Council capabilities. Every victory gave them more resources to continue their advance. They did not fight to win individual battles. They fought to win the war. In his command center, Supreme Council leader Vextar watched the tactical displays with growing horror. In less than a week, human forces had crippled the Council's military capabilities and captured or destroyed key infrastructure across dozens of systems. "How many ships do they have?" he demanded. "Current estimates indicate over 50,000 vessels," his military advisor replied. "But, sir, most of them appear to be converted civilian craft. Cargo ships, mining vessels, even passenger liners that have been armed." Vextar felt cold fear creeping into his thoughts. The humans had not just built a military fleet. They had turned their entire civilian population into a weapon of war. "And our losses? We've lost control of 40% of our territory. Our fuel production is down by 70%. Communication with outer colonies has been completely severed." Vextar realized the horrible truth. The Galaxy Council was losing a war against a species they had considered primitive savages just 1 week earlier. "Prepare the core worlds for siege," he ordered, "and send a message to the human leadership. Tell them we want to negotiate." The emergency session of the Galaxy Council convened in the Great Assembly Hall on their homeworld of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 3,000 star systems gathered in panicked confusion as reports continued to stream in from across their crumbling empire. Commander Zarthek stood before the assembly, his scales gray with stress and his voice shaking as he delivered his final analysis of the human threat. "Honored council members," he began, "I must report that our initial assessment of the human species was catastrophically wrong." Murmurs rippled through the great hall. Supreme Leader Vextar leaned forward in his throne, his eyes burning with anger. "Explain yourself, Commander. How could a primitive species defeat our entire military?" Zarthek activated the holographic display, showing images of human tactical victories across the galaxy. The humans were never primitive. They were an apex predator species that deliberately appeared weak during our first contact. The display showed footage from the original Earth scans 50 years earlier. "Look at their planet," Zarthek continued. "It is a death world by our standards. Extreme weather, natural disasters, predatory life forms, and a hostile environment that should have prevented intelligent life from evolving." He changed the display to show human physiology data. The humans evolved as persistence hunters. They can track prey for days without stopping. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. Their brains are designed to learn from every failure and adapt their tactics. Council Representative Mexlar of the Altarian Empire interrupted. "But they submitted to our rule for 50 years. How is that the behavior of an apex predator?" Zarthek's expression grew grim. "Because they were studying us. Every human worker was gathering intelligence. Every human soldier was learning our military tactics. Every human maintenance crew was mapping our technology." The display showed the scope of human infiltration, hidden modifications in council systems, secret communication networks, the massive fleet built in disguise as civilian operations. "We did not conquer the humans," Zarthek said quietly. "We gave them 50 years to conduct the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history." The council chamber erupted in angry voices and panicked discussions. Several representatives demanded immediate action, others called for negotiation, and some suggested evacuating to the Outer Rim territories. The argument stopped when alerts began blaring throughout the chamber. Council military ships stationed around Nexus Prime were reporting massive hyperspace signatures. On the main display, thousands of human ships began dropping out of hyperspace around the Council homeworld. The fleet was enormous, easily the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. At the front of the human fleet, Admiral Patricia Hayes stood on the bridge of her flagship. After 50 years of following council orders, she was finally coming home to deliver humanity's judgment. "Open a channel to the council assembly," she ordered. The great hall fell silent as Admiral Hayes's image appeared on the main display. She was an elderly woman now, with gray hair and lined face, but her eyes burned with the determination of someone who had spent 5 decades planning this moment. "Members of the Galaxy Council," she began, "I am Admiral Hayes of the Human Liberation Fleet. We have come to discuss terms." Supreme Leader Vextar stood up, his voice filled with desperate authority. "Humans! You are in violation of your vassalage contract. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Admiral Hayes smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Your vassalage contract became void the moment you ordered us to murder Recti children. But let me tell you what you really need to understand about the species you tried to enslave." The display behind Hayes shifted to show images of Earth's history. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plagues, wars, and natural disasters that would have destroyed most civilizations. "We come from a world that spent 4 billion years trying to kill us," Hayes continued. "We survived mass extinctions, climate catastrophes, and our own worst instincts. We learned to work together because anything else meant death." The images changed to show human achievements: art, science, exploration, acts of heroism, and sacrifice. "We are not a military species by nature," Hayes said. "We are builders and explorers and teachers. But when you threaten what we protect, you discover what millions of years of survival evolution can create." Council Representative Dextor of the Vegan Collective spoke up. "What do you want from us? Revenge? To become the new galactic overlords?" Hayes's expression softened slightly. "We want you to understand that you never should have tried to be our masters. But we have no desire to become yours." She gestured, and new data appeared on the display. Detailed proposals for governmental reform, species rights, and economic cooperation. "We propose the dissolution of the Council's imperial structure and its replacement with a true confederation of equals. Every species will have the right to self-determination. No more vassalage contracts, no more forced labor, no more genocide as policy. The council members looked stunned. Supreme Leader Vexitar spoke for many when he asked, "And if we refuse?" Admiral Hayes's smile returned, cold and predatory. "Then we continue what we started. We will hunt down every council ship, capture every council world, and dismantle your empire piece by piece. We are very patient, and we never give up." She paused, letting the words sink in. "But we would prefer not to do that. Conquest is not our goal. Justice is." In the assembly hall, Commander Zarthek slowly raised his hand to speak. "Admiral Hayes," he said, "I was the one who first encountered your species. I was the one who recommended your integration as vassals. I need to ask, during that first contact, did you already know what you were planning?" Hayes nodded. "Dr. Sarah Chen and our leadership team knew that peaceful coexistence was unlikely. Your council had a pattern of conquest and exploitation that we had observed in our preliminary scouting. We calculated that conflict was inevitable." Zarthek felt a chill run through his entire body. "So the apparent primitiveness, the acceptance of vassalage—" "We needed time to learn about your civilization from the inside," Hayes confirmed. "We needed to understand your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. Most importantly, we needed you to underestimate us until we were ready." The horrible realization swept through the assembly. The humans had been planning this war from the moment of first contact. 50 years of apparent loyalty had been 50 years of preparation for this exact moment. Council Representative Yexna of the Sirius Confederation asked the question that everyone was thinking. "How do we know you will not simply become the new tyrants? How do we know you will honor this proposed confederation?" Admiral Hayes looked thoughtful for a moment, then gestured to someone off-screen. A new figure appeared on the display, an elderly recti with blue-gray skin and large, grateful eyes. "This is Elder Morgeth of the Recti Survivors," Hayes said. "Would you like to tell the council about your people's experience with humans?" The Recti elder spoke in a voice filled with emotion. "When the council ordered the genocide of my people, humans risked their own lives to save us. They could have followed orders and remained safe. Instead, they chose to protect strangers at great cost to themselves." Elder Morgeth continued, "Humans do not seek to rule others. They seek to protect those who cannot protect themselves. This is what makes them dangerous to tyrants and valuable to the innocent." The council chamber was silent as the implications sank in. The humans had revealed their true nature not through conquest, but through mercy. Supreme Leader Vextar looked around at his fellow council members, seeing fear, resignation, and something else, perhaps hope. "What are your specific terms?" he asked. Admiral Hayes outlined the proposal in detail. The Galaxy Council would be dissolved and replaced with a democratic confederation. All species would have equal representation regardless of their technological level. Military forces would be defensive only, with no single species controlling galactic security. "And what will humans do in this new confederation?" Vextar asked. "We will serve as mediators and peacekeepers," Hayes replied. "Our unique history makes us effective at resolving conflicts and protecting smaller species from exploitation." She paused, then added with a slight smile, "We are very good at stopping bullies." The vote took place over several hours as council representatives consulted with their home governments. In the end, the result was unanimous. The Galaxy Council voted to dissolve itself and accept the human proposal for a galactic confederation. As the formal ceremonies concluded, Commander Zarthek approached Admiral Hayes during a recess. "Admiral," he said, "I must ask, do you hate us for what we did to your people?" Hayes considered the question seriously. "We hate what you did, Commander. The exploitation, the casual cruelty, the genocide. But we do not hate you as individuals. Most of you were following a system you believed was necessary." She looked out at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens working together to draft the new Confederation Charter. Hatred would make us like you were. We chose to be better. 6 months later, Commander Zarthek stood in his new office as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Confederation. Outside his window, ships from dozens of species worked together on peaceful missions: exploration, trade, scientific research. He was writing his final report on the human integration crisis, and he chose his words carefully. "The greatest mistake the Galaxy Council made," he wrote, "was believing that intelligence and civilization were the same thing. We thought that advanced technology made us civilized, while primitive technology made others savage." He paused, watching a human rescue ship return from a successful mission to save survivors from a natural disaster on a distant world. "We learned too late that true civilization is not about technology or power. It is about choosing to protect rather than exploit, to build rather than destroy, to cooperate rather than dominate." Zarthek finished his report with a final observation that would be studied by historians for generations to come. Humanity's greatest victory was not defeating the Galaxy Council in battle. Their greatest victory was showing us that there was a better way to live among the stars. They did not just win a war, they evolved an entire galaxy. Outside his window, the ships of the Galactic Confederation continued their work, carrying the promise of a future where no species would ever again mistake patience for weakness or kindness for submission. The humans had taught the galaxy that the most dangerous predators were not always the ones with the sharpest claws. Sometimes they were the ones with the biggest hearts.